Okay. Yeah, welcome everyone to the third ICOM UK Student and Emerging Professional event. I am Robert Ren, the Student and Emerging Professional Representative of ICOM UK. And as the chair of today's session, let me start by saying thank you to all of you. It's lovely to see everyone participating. And I'm sure this will be a fascinating 90 minutes for some thought-provoking discussions and conversations. This session is being recorded. I hope this is okay with you. Our speaker for this time will be Wang Hsiao-Chiang, but we can just call her Hope. She's a postgraduate student in museum studies at the University of Glasgow, and she is currently conducting the Decolonising Museum websites project with the Hunterian Museum in Glasgow, which she will talk more about in a minute. Also, I want to just give a huge congrats to Hope on starting her PhD alongside the UNESCO RILA team to research on how to make World Heritage become inclusive and accessible for all. So firstly, Hope will give us a presentation on her topic. Then we will be opening Q&A and more free discussions afterwards. Your idea will be very important for ICOM UK, so please feel free to talk. If you have questions, please type it in the chat box and we will read it out for you later. Or you can use the raise your hand button and wait to ask the question directly by yourself. And by the end of this talk, I will still use the last 10 minutes or so of this hour and a half to introduce the ICOM UK project and new opportunities for you to join the platform. We are more than happy to have further discussions, and your voice matters for ICOM UK to create a better future for museum users. And again, I have to give credit to Louise Young, the co-organizer of this event with the ICOM UK Student and Emerging Professional Working Group. And thank you, Hope. We're honored to have you here. I really hope we can bring together as many people as possible and raise our voices together. And so now let's start today's session and welcome Hope. Hope, over to you now.
Thank you so much. So firstly, I will share my screen. I hope you can see my screen right now. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Hope, currently a museum studies student in the Glasgow University. Thank you for joining today's event. I appreciate ICOM UK students and the emerging professional group, especially Louis and Robert invited me to share my ongoing research and have a wonderful opportunity to discuss with you about this topic, Decolonising Museums website. In today's talk, I will introduce my motivation, raise some questions, and illustrate a framework for understanding decolonizing museums. Also, I will share my methodology, introduce you the Hunterian case, also hold a discussion time with you. It is not a completed project, so I will not provide a conclusion today. Instead, I genuinely hope we could exchange our idea during today's event. So the first part is my motivation. I think it is like a combination of choice and destiny. Based on my experiences, a sense of responsibility and curiosity. Before coming to the UK, I worked in the Ministry of Culture in Taiwan for 6 years. I was responsible for the Indigenous Empowerment Project and an entrance website for all museums in Taiwan. So I'm really aware about the power relations and the underlying mechanism of knowledge system. This is our website. And during my museum study program, I had a work placement experience in the Hunterian doing website audit, focusing on the accessibility. So I had a chance to practice Terminal 4 content management system and Google Analytics. They become useful tools in my current research. Meanwhile, the Hunterian conducted the Curating Discomfort project from 2020 to 2022, and finally reach the milestone and add the curating discover intervention in the museum's main hall. The physical entity was situated in the main permanent exhibition with massive showcase. So everyone will notice the change is happening in the museum. However, the online presence is not noticeable and the information is insufficient, let alone online engagement. Therefore, I proposed this project to the museum. I hope this research could yield practical and feasible recommendations for the Hunterian to improve the website and make the most of it. My future research is also relevant to the website and decolonization. I will work on the UNESCO Scotland Trail using the digital interfaces to present the diverse interpretation from marginalized groups, such as refugees and migrations. I believe research could be done by oneself just with true love, but a fundamental change needs to be achieved by everyone collaboratively. So I hope you could contribute any opinion on this topic. Your experiences, your ideas, or any questions are super welcome. Today, I actually prepared 3 questions for you. First, what is the nature of decolonization? Second, what does it mean to you to decolonize museums in the 21st centuries? And how to use website to support the decolonization process? And I'd like to pause here for 1 minute. Yeah, because you can see there's a QR code, and I also sent a link on the chat in the chat box. So I hope you can see this question right now. You could feel free to choose one of them, or if you want, you could choose all of them. What is the nature of decolonization? It means challenging white supremacy, or it's about collection, it's repatriation, or it's to diversifying workforce idea and voices, or it means to discover history and truth, or it's to initiate social change. Yeah, you could just choose one of them. And if your answer did not show on the list, you could just type your answer in our chat box. By the way, it's totally anonymous, so feel free to choose one. You are welcome to consider, like in your country, do people talk about decolonization in the same way? Because like in my country, people talk about this issue in different way. So I'd like to move on to our next question. And really thank you for your contribution. We could see diversifying workforce idea and voices got the highest vote. It's an interesting topic because in the beginning, people spent more time on discussing repatriation, collection, but nowadays we might more focus on diversifying voices. So give everyone the right to speak is really crucial. And I think it is what communication technology could do for that. And the next question is, what words bump into your head when discussing decolonizing museum in the 21st centuries? What words might means to you when you consider this issue? It's like power, engagement, supremacy, any words you could think about. Welcome to just type in the box. Reconstruction, indigenous, authority. Diverse keywords. Yeah, it's a really crucial concept in Decolonizing Museum's website. Respect. Accessibility to all. Yeah, it is. I'm so happy to see people give answer like justice and equality, because decolonization discourse in museum really become burden. We should not only focus about the museum itself, but focus on the more burden social context. I think everyone got a link could continue contribute to this issue, and I'd like to move on. I really appreciate we could co-create the new definition of decolonization of museums. And the final question is how to use website to support the decolonization process. Actually, it is my research questions. Website play an important role in terms of information sharing. People will search for things, seeing things, knowing things, and talk about things in cyberspace. It should be discussed more critically, so we could use it as a useful tool to do decolonization work. So I will continue my presentation, sharing my approach to consider this question. And the question do not only have one approach. So you are welcome to share your idea in the chat box. We will have a conversation time to discuss it more. So first, there are so many scholars continuously debate on the concept of decolonization. As decolonization is an ongoing process, they usually will raise more questions while proposing solutions, like how are museums influenced by also contributed to colonialism? What should museum practitioners do? Or why do museums mean differently for different group of people? In the beginning, people focus more on the history of museums. For example, Hooper Greenhill argues museums are valuable tools for shaping people's epistemology. It contains the imperial notion and the political power which construct the Western dominant world. Bennett reasons museums as a controlling social instrument dating back to the beginning of public museums within the British context. Then more and more research discussed the power and political relations in the discourse of decolonization and museology. Recently, Museum Association announced a campaign supporting decolonization in museums, providing guidelines to encourage museums to start this work. In 2021, the International Committee for Museology issued a study series, The Decolonization of Museology, Museums, Mixing, and Myths of Origin. The focal point is expanded from the museum history and collection to a broader social issues. Also, the voices are not solely on museum professionals, but include more people from marginalized groups and activists. Just like Said said, imperialism did not end, did not suddenly become past. I believe decolonization is a contemporary issue. It changes from time to time. So it is the time for my generation to contribute to this issue. Therefore, I want to discuss decolonization from two trends. One is the development of museology. In the context of new museology, the museum is not isolated from the real world but connected to society. It emphasizes the contemporary purpose and the social role of museums, encourages social intervention, communication, and public participation, and managed to transform the old notion of museum as a building-centered, collection-focused, elitist, and authorized institution into a mission-oriented, activist, public sharing, and democratic entity. The unfolding of the new museology is continuously shaping and changing the nature and appearance of decolonization work. Meanwhile, just like McLaughlin said, media is the message. The internet has expanded the physical life of humanity. The physical venue of museums is not the only media to disseminate knowledge and values. In fact, after ICT joins the communication process, the monologue becomes a conversation. Individuals could doubt, could debate, and give feedback on certain issues. The museum is also involved in different types of social media, such like podcast or Facebook, even Instagram, that make the communication process become more complicated, interactive, and unpredictable. So I propose a framework to illustrate the multidimensional decolonization discourse. The horizontal axis shows the related focus on collection and knowledge versus public and community. The left side of the spectrum refers to the traditional role of museum, which is the safeguard of collection and the authorized producers of knowledge. And the right side of the spectrum describes the character of an activist with the mission of social change. The vertical axis of the framework indicates the medium. The lower side, museum-based media, represents the information presented in the museum operate field, including the exhibition or education programs and workforce, of course. While the upper side, digital technology-based medium, refers to the media in cyberspace, such as the World Wide Web, social media, and crowdsourcing platform. In general, physical places are more controllable and predictable than their digital counterparts. But digital space could reach a broader range of people, creating international partnership. As an optimistic, I would deem communication technology as an opportunity rather than a threat, because technology could release museums from the metaphor of mausoleum and stealing house, because it ends the necessary association between objects and institutional authorities. More importantly, communication technologies enable us to create new connections. The connections between objects and people, museums and communities. With the theoretical support, the next step is to build a methodology to examine it in the real-world cases. Website is my research focal point. I need to have a holistic understanding of it, including its producers, content, and users. So I designed my methodology like I interviewed museum curators to understand them as website producers. Also, I adopt Powell's website analysis framework to explore the dynamic website content. And I use Google Analytics as an instrument to discover user behavior and website performance. Luckily enough, the Hungarians accept my proposal because they think it is what they need. So I could work with the museum. I really appreciate the Hungarian, not because it is the oldest public museum in Scotland, but because they really have an open attitude to accept new voices, even just like from a student researcher like me. They take these critical opinions as the momentum to move forward. So I would say a changing university museum is not only a slogan on their website, but they are really doing that. For example, the Hungarian remodeled the permanent display this year. The reconstruction aimed to address the controversial issue of racism, identity, imperialism, and colonial history by reconsidering the interpretation, reshaping curatorial thinking, and rewriting the new narratives. The museum will continue a new project called Power in This Place in future 3 years, so we could expect more change will happen. Here, I'd like to share with you a short video, just about 1 to 2 minutes, because I think not everyone has time and a chance to visit in Glasgow. So this short video was produced by the curator of Discomfort, Zendra Yemen, and her team. It clearly shows the physical presence of this curating discomfort intervention.
The Huntarian is committed to becoming a more ethical institution that critically reflects on the past, is relevant in the present, and contributes to a more equitable future for all. How can we become what we are committing to? As part of this work, Curating Discomfort puts forward discomforting provocations and interventions to help us to think critically about colonial systems, such as the British Empire. Systems that used ideologies to justify the enslavement and colonisation of peoples and lands around the world. Museums developed within this context, and they remain spaces that celebrate and memorialise colonial systems of the past in the present. Collections, displays and labels are a political act that have legacies rooted in colonialism. We want to address this. Join me, Zandra Yemen, curator of Discomfort, in the series of podcasts delivered by academics, community activists, social justice campaigners and educators to explore the Huntarian's collections. Look out for our podcast series links on our website and streaming on major podcast platforms.
I also put the podcast link in chat box. So if you want to know more about this project, feel free to click the link. After seeing the Hunterian's physical performance, let's take a look on the Hunterian's website. I would say it is an informative and clear website. Use a traditional way to neutrally inform people about the project's purpose, process, and the curation team. However, you cannot feel the changing power of this project. You can download the visual image of the workshop, but there's no explanation for the general public. So the discussion cannot grow and influence more people. You can see the team, but you cannot create a connection with them. I would say if the project has the power of change and the important message, and it really has, the website as a media should convey the power and important message rather than weaken it. So I start my research journey. First, I conduct interviews with museum staff. My questions were developed according to these 4 dimensions: decentralization, connectivity, interactivity, and mobility. I focused on, but not limited to, the website, and I received many valuable opinions from the museum practitioners. Also, I spent a lot of time analyzing museum content. I agree that websites are one kind of cultural expression, so I collect data from website and interpret it. There are 6 steps in my content analysis. First, I write down the first impression and capture the main message. For example, the Hunterian is an institutional-oriented website. The website is used to deliver one-way message rather than encourage public to participate. Decolonization is an emerging issue in this museum that has not yet caused structural change. Secondly, I inventory topics and salient features, including hyperlinks, feedback, and interactive areas. The negative analysis is crucial here. In other words, I need to detect something might be missing because the concept of decolonization might be ignored intentionally or unintentionally in many sections. So I need to record both present and absent content. Then in my third step, I observe the navigation and structure. I believe design is thinking made visible, and the layout shows the institution's priority. In the Hunterian case, they put decolonization as an important mission, but the content is limited in the introduction section. In the first step, I dive into specific web pages to record content, including languages, images, video, and their relations. In the fifth step, I try to find the embedded voice, the implied audience, and the main purpose. For example, I will judge the content from some sentence such like, we invited a group of 6 people from community. I could know the dominant point of view is still the institution. The main purpose is to show the stance of the Hunterian. In the final step, I analyze context, provenance, and inference. The curation team members are simplified as an advisory panel on the introduction web page. Unlike the label of interventions in the venue, still keep the multi-author source. The Hunterian added curating discomfort as a new section rather than embedded this topic in relating sections, such like collection and exhibitions. In terms of website users, I collect data from Google Analytics. I pay attention to certain metrics such as unique page view and average time on the website because I want to know how long will people stay in the website. which topic really interesting and encourage them to learn more. Also, I pay attention to the bounce rate. Bounce rate means a user going to a web page without do any further action like click a link or scrolling their screen. They just left immediately. So if the bounce rate is too high, means something might go wrong. Maybe the content cannot get attention from the users, or the title and the content cannot explain each other well. So this kind of metrics let me understand how do people respond to these new contents. After collecting data, I am in my final stage of writing dissertation. It is far from finished. Yeah, so I might reform, rewrite, and refine my points in the following process. However, certainly I will talk about two things. One is the feature of Web 2.0 and the nature of decolonization. Considering World Wide Web enables museums to convey information without the limitation of time and space in a multi-mode, multi-users, and producers environment. How to utilize the features such as decentralization, interactivity, connectivity, and mobility to support decolonization work. To enhance power sharing, to bring in reflective thinking into the institution. This will be my discussion point. In addition, I will also talk about the website as a new engagement zone for museums. Here is the spectrum of engagement. The first level is access. It's to make collection and museum work available for everyone. For example, a user-friendly collection search engine, or a clear and with clear, easy understand language on the introduction section. The second level is communication and consultation. It's to encourage dialogue between public and curators. Blog is a good example because on blogs, curator could share their article on behalf as themselves, not on behalf of the institution. So we could keep diverse voices on blog, and people could also add their comments, give feedback there. Another alternative way is to put the social media link on the website, so people could easily start a conversation with the institution. The next level is reflection and provision. It's to provide digital space for users to upload, share, edit, categorize digital items, so people could see it. Some museums already start to do this kind of work, so people have the opportunity to create their own online digital collection. The final level is structure involvement. It's to inviting users to vote, to assess, or participate as moderators on certain issues. This is almost the end of my sharing, but it's not a conclusion. I'm just on the way, and there's still a long way to go. I want to use one sentence to wrap up today's topic. While colonialism is an expression of power that relies upon oppression, extraction of resources, and silencing other ways of being and knowing, I would say Decolonizing Museum website is the ongoing process of decentralization, connecting communities, engaging people, and giving everyone the right to think and speak. Thank you for your patience and contribution. We welcome any idea, feedback, and questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hope, for sharing your brilliant project with us. It's very, very interesting slides, and I've learned a lot of new ideas from it. Very impressive. And now I believe many of you might have some questions or feedbacks to us or to Hope. Just as I said, please, if you want to ask the questions directly, use the raise your hand button or just type it in the chat box and we can read it out for you. When waiting for questions from our audience, I'd like to take the advantage to start with some questions quickly. Hope. Yeah, so one question is, about this specific project that you're working on with the Hunterian Museum. I can see that you've collected many datas and how you've analyzed the audience and the website users. So did the Hunterian Museum actually make any changes in order to respond to the data you have collected? Yeah.
Yes, I know the Hunterian plan to remodel their website in the beginning. That's why I propose this project to them, because I don't want my research will not make any changes. So many things they need to take into consideration because firstly, because the website is embedded in the university, not an independent website, and they need to use Terminal 4 systems. So something might be fixed there, but after knowing the limitation, we could make a more feasible recommendation for them. So currently, I won't make recommendation as a pop-up windows, quite spatial design, but we could change the language or we could change the structure of this information, make the information become more accessible and become more easy to understand for the public, for general audience.
Yeah, thank you.
And one thing I'd like to add is Hunterian has its own communication manager. So the website is belong to the concept of communication. I think it's a good start because they are not assign people who only know about the computer things. Yeah, they are really focused about how to use website as a communication tool.
Okay, so I can see one question from our audience. So apart from the traditional one-way system layout, do you find any good example which suits a better practice and approach model?
Actually, I could share my screen. Yes, I need to find some good example for the museums so they could know what's the next. There are 3 examples. One is National Museum of African Americans. So like they provide a interface on their website. So people are encouraged to create connects with them. You could easy to find who to connect next, especially their language. They say, engage with us and support the museum from wherever you are. Yeah, it's a touching sentence. So people will think, yes, this is my museum. I should contribute to it. Yeah, no matter where I am now. Also, another example is Humboldt Forum. Yeah, if the museum put decolonization on its front page, so everyone would know it is a museum that welcome conversations, they welcome challenges. So people are invited to join this discourse. I think they are a good example for a better website performance. And they are not use such a complicated technique. They just change the language and the impression of their website.
Yeah, I think that, yes, these good examples that you found is very important. Like how do you engage the audience, from the beginning? And yeah, because we all have that kind of traditional sense of the one-way system. You click and then find something you want. But yeah, now we need to do more engagement. That's your task, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay, so just now I see one audience raise their hand. So I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, but Arnie?
Anna, yes.
Yeah,
Hi,
please
can
go
you hear
ahead.
me? Yes, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hope, for a
Thank you.
fantastic, really good presentation. It was really thought-provoking, and I particularly like I think the last but one slide where the feature of the web too, and the nature of decolonization. That's really, really insightful. You're kind of mapping the structure of a website onto kind of key areas of transformation through.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that was great. And just following on from what you were saying about engagement, and particularly I noticed about power sharing on that on the right hand side of that slide that you had. Yeah, my question is more of a practical one. It's like the Rijksmuseum, where you're trying to get people to upload their own work, or I'm also thinking of creating kind of archives where people can send in or upload their own work as a way of, for them to engage, but also add more knowledges that they have, and local knowledges and other knowledges. I was just wondering what kind of just the practicalities of that to do that on a website. Do you think there would be some resistance maybe from the institution of the museum to do that it would undermine some of their authority? So, but also just a pure practicality. Does it need monitoring, and does it need extra time and staff to do that? So I'd welcome your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it is a really good question, because I asked the Hungarian during interview, and I received the answers that I even don't expect it before. Like you said, there are two dimensions in this kind of question. The first one is, will this kind co-creation function weaken the authorities of the museums, or the museum cannot do that just because they don't have sufficient workforce to do that. They don't have a time and staff to respond to this kind of content. And I think those are the concerns from the museum, because they are worried about how to control this content. Yeah, but from my view, sometimes you just need to let go the control, because you cannot control the content from so many diverse people. And in terms of practical dimensions, actually, the Hungarian would say they usually won't change the content after upload on their website, because usually there are so many projects, and the people might left the museum after the project end. So who could continue to keep the mobility of the content? It's another issue. But I try to find more example, try to understand how other institutions to keep the mobility of their website. And I think the structural change need to be made. What I mean by that is, like in the Hungarian currently, only a group of people, and they are signed by contract. are doing decolonization work. But this project will bring in new concept into the museums and also change the workforce in the Hunterian, maybe in the future, but we cannot see the change just immediately. We need to wait. And in that way, when people have the concept of decolonization, they will have the capability to respond to these different opinions. In that way, they could they could respond to different question and answer, so they could keep the mobility of the website. And I think for university museum, it's challenging to do that. But if they could do it in the physical museum, they could. I believe they could do the online version, because compared with the physical venue, actually it's more easy. It's easier to do that online.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah, I like the way that you're kind of linking the physical museum and the online museum. That it might actually be harder to do it in the physical museum and easier on the website. The website has some very useful functions, doesn't it? Because of the page structure, etc., you're able to bring in different points of view, aren't you? You know, historically, so
Yeah.
that there is a structural aspect to a website that can aid decolonization, I think. Yeah, and create different points of view. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and your opinion is really crucial. Yeah, I could bring in your opinion to discuss with the Hunterian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I can see there's another question from our audience. This is from Ariel Suskin. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. So, hi Hope, really interesting project. I have kind of a fundamental question. What definition of decolonization are you using for your work? So coming from the US, decolonization for us is much more focused on indigenous American rights to land and material culture, rather than oriented towards accessibility and polyvocal creation, which is considered a separate avenue of change. Yeah, so I guess this question is, what definition of decolonization are you using for your work?
Good questions. I think this question in the beginning of my research, and I find I really cannot give a single definition of decolonization, because I read many literature and I talk about these words in different way. That's why I try to propose a framework rather than one sentence to talk about that. Because I know what I want to address is the issue in the UK is about the Hunterian. But in my personal opinions, I might talk about decolonization in totally different way. Like in Taiwan, we won't talk about white supremacy. Yeah, because it's not fit in our context. But in the UK, I could see the discourse to talk about decolonization become more diverse. So in my research, because I focus on the website, so I will say I will situate museum as a social changer and focus on the digital space. So the decolonization discourse in my dissertation will focus on how to spread history and truth, how to give everyone right to think and to speak, and how to make the information transparent and accessible for all. Really, thank you for your question.
Thank you, Hope. Are there any other questions? We have time for one more question, I think. Yeah, I can see someone's. Okay. Okay, so this question is from Yan Ting. How to decentralize the physical museum, even ways of knowledge production? Can you explain more about Web 2.0? The decentralizing of physical museums.
Decentralize the physical museums. Or the online version. I am thinking about these questions. I think it's more difficult. It's harder to decentralize museum in the physical world, because in physical world it is a building institution, and people need to go into the museum and follow the norm in the museum. And usually the exhibition, even though they have some interactive technology, but the message is still one way conveyed. Yeah, unlike on the website, the nature of website is interactive, and everyone could become message producer, also the message receivers. So it's we could use website or social media to become a window to accept new idea from the public. At the same time, we also need to down to the earth. We need to change it from the institution. So the mechanism, like how to receive and respond to these new ideas, and how to use this idea become the momentum to moving forward, is a crucial topic for the museum. So we won't talk about this issue divided into just physical or online, but they could complete each other.
Yep, that's a very good answer. And yeah, go ahead, Luis, please.
Hi everyone. I really like the question Yanting raised just right now. I think I just add my feedback and also question on this question. So it's about yes, since we all know that museum for most people is still like physical experience. Since we are added technology to support the physical building and physical collections, but for most of people, probably in their mind, they still consider museum is more like engagement of the real object. And my question is, so what do you think? Or how would you define or explain the relationship between museum technology and the real objects? And do you think technology is independent, or it functions in different ways, or these activities on website or VR activity online need to cooperate or redirect the narratives that the museum's collections history convey via the real object? Or yeah, just wondering what's your idea responding to how to make them more cooperative or reflecting different sides or the functional museum. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. I think the work should be done definitely in both ways. Let me think about any good example. I'd like to share the experience when I interview the curator of this conference, the Zendra Yemen. She in the beginning, the team was think about they want people to visit the exhibition in the museum to feel the atmosphere in this building. But more and more people will say they want to see, but they are not Glasgow based, not Scotland based, or they came from different country. They cannot see. So I think it's time to use technology to help people to understand something's happening here, and it might be a good model for other museums to initiate their version of decolonization. So I think the work should be done collaboratively, both sides, because even though we talk about online presence, all online presence still managed by people. We are exist in this real world, so the change should from the physical world and also the online world. We need to change the workforce. We need to change how museums deal with this opinion. We really want to see if the museum receive opinions from website and they really change the label of their collection, or if people give opinion about repatriation or the way they interpret their collection. People would like to see the real change in the museum. So the work should be done both sides. And I think the Hunterian is really considered about this part. So like next year, they plan to remodel the website. Also, they will continue the new project named The Power in This Place. And I think the place might means the digital space and the physical place.
Thank you, Ho. I'm really looking forward to that happen because I know this might be very difficult for some museums who maybe their collections more or less involved with the colonial history. Thank you for the response.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for the questions, and thank you, Hope. Yeah, so I think we've come to the next part of our event. Now I'd like to open a broader conversation. And I would really encourage everyone to speak or type whatever you would like to say in the chat box, or just to speak up, because I think this is one of the most important purpose of this event, is for all of us to share our ideas and thoughts while responding to others, and and finally to make networks, connect, and build up our community. So this is basically just a free discussion session. If anyone wants to share anything, or also maybe you want to, some of your thoughts from Hope's presentation or other topics is okay. Maybe I should start by sharing. I think, Luis, did you have like a piece of news from the?
Hi, Robert. Just copy some question that Hope raised today, and just welcome everybody to share their idea or their experience, like what you really experience in the real objects in the museum. That all opinion welcome.
Yeah. I think as we discussed something about the news that the V&A have posted this week about how they wanted to make their their museum. I think it's probably also related to this decolonization of the V&A. Do you have that piece of? Yeah, I think the news was.
Yes, I'm happy to share the link. I think this on ICOM UK's website. This is just the news this week. I believe many of you might read them. I think it's about the collection. Might be less relevant to our topic today, but it's just a prompt to think about if museums are considering maybe some of the collection can return to the public, or maybe return to the original cultural environment. That would help us to consider the museum's responsibility in the future. Like what would the conversation would be like in this news title? This is a subtitle here. So the new director said They aim to start a conversation about the act next year, arguing that some items should be allowed to be restituted or the accession. So that means they consider to change the law that stop museums from disposing of works. Yes, this is my idea about if museum can choose which collections they are going to keep in the future, and they might consider what's the responsibility in terms of decolonization.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting topic, isn't it? Because well, many of the museums, their collection did, come from, I guess, like when they were come from imperialism or something. Yeah, a lot of the collection. So now, if they're thinking of I think that's means they're trying to return these objects, or just choosing which collection they keep or which collection they would dispose. But I think it's a very interesting thing to discuss. Because I know that during these years there has been many discussions about the museum's collections. Some countries wants their some of the objects or collections back to their original country, and yeah, there's been this heated debate on whether they should return the collections or the objects. Yeah, and I always thought that probably it's not that necessary. Well, everyone each parties have their reasons. For example, the original country would say, it was our stuff, and maybe now it's a time for you to return it to us. But yeah, like the museums here or in the US, they would say, yeah, but we have been keeping these objects for so many years, and we have taken good care of them. There's no point of returning them. They're in safe hands or whatever. So what's everyone's thought on that? Is there any?
Yeah, may I contribute my idea?
Yeah, sure.
I often see museum would say they are the safeguard, they are the protector of this collection, and they say because they keep this collection, so everyone could see this collection.
Yeah.
That's why they do not return it to the community or to another country, because they think they have the capability to keep the collection safe and continuously to research it, to yield more knowledge of it. Yeah, but I would say that's because imperialism. So they say they have the ability to protect the collection, and they still situated as an authority say, I have the right to keep the collection. I am the best one to keep it, to convey all this knowledge to our next generation. But actually, it's a structural problem. Yeah, because the inequality among different countries. So they would say such a sentences. In my point of view, I would say they should return the collection, and they should do it proactively. They should just to find the right place for this collection.
Okay. Go ahead, Athena. Or just speak. It's okay.
Hello. Do you want me to turn the camera on as well?
It depends on you. It depends on you. Yeah.
Well, nice to meet you. Sorry for the mess. I live in a studio. So I believe that museums should collaborate with the countries the collections come from, and create joint spaces. So we have like the Ritz Museum could go to the other country and open up an annex in which annex we can exhibit the collection in the country of origin, but also acknowledge the fact that colonization did happen and these collections were elsewhere for a while, but they could return easily to the country of origin without having the issue and to whom does the collection belong now. That's my thought. I've been working on this concept for a while, but I cannot find well, I don't think that any museum realistically would be willing to do that.
Yeah, I think it's a very good concept, as you said, but I think, yeah, realistically it would be very difficult to, I guess, to how would they transfer the objects, and where would they find this joint space to display. But it's worth discussing. I think, yeah, maybe worth raising this to the museums as well. I see Ariel. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you've been pronouncing my name right. It's all good. I'm coming from the U.S. and we've been doing a lot of repatriation work, both with American indigenous cultures and also internationally. And what really the experience has been for us is that everything is very much on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work really being devoted to provenance research to make sure that what is in collections is sort of rightfully there. And there are sort of different laws with different countries, but one of the things that has been done in the US lately, particularly with Italy, is if that something is looted in the US from Italy and the museum returns it, Italy will lend the museum long-term other objects of equal value. And I think negotiations like that are a very sort of proactive way of doing international goodwill, sort of respecting people's claims to heritage while still having access to these world-class collections.
Yeah.
And the same thing even works for indigenous materials that were taken under colonization, where objects that were considered sacred are returned, but the community is then commissioned to create another version or a replica of that same object or a similar object that can be used in the museum that doesn't have sort of those cultural connections that make it improper for museum view. So I think it's really that it's very much needed to be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, depending on the community needs, the community's resources, and sort of the reasoning behind claims for repatriation or rejection of repatriation.
Yeah. I think, yeah, case-by-case situations is very important. And yeah, I guess there's no point like returning, like we want it back and we want to return this to you. I think the thing you said about Italy and US is a very interesting one, because it's better to to communicate rather than like to say you return or want something back. Because I think one of the things that the collections in museums, no matter where the origin was or how did they access these collections, but it's always I think one of the best part of the country that it's representing. So I think it's good that internationally the audiences can see these objects and to learn from them, and also for the museums to study them as well. Yeah, so I think it's just about communication and like create a win-win situation. Yeah. Okay, so Okay, so Yanting is saying that add to the presentation. Is there any is there any project that is worth sharing, which is also diversify voices and community centric in the museum context? Also inspire you while doing research? How to make a proper research proposal to museum in your experience? So yeah, this is another question to you, I hope.
Yes. Yes. I think the Van Gogh Museum, a project named Build Breaker, also named Reframers, inspired me during this research. It's a new project in Van Gogh, and the project is the museum invite young professionals with different cultural background, because there's many immigrant refugees and different people living in the Netherlands. Also, the Van Gogh Museum, their collection actually has I could say it's a universal value. So they try to return the right of interpretation to people with different cultural background. So this project allow these young professionals, some of them are even students, to reinterpret this collection in their own way, and to recreate their artwork or in other forms like poetry or painting or design. And they recently just hold an exhibition named Not So Seriously. And it's a way to let different voices really into their institution. And I think it's just the beginning, because in the beginning they need to try how to cooperate with this kind of new voices, because their researchers need to save the space for new voices to talk about Van Gogh's artwork. Also, the institution need to make change, not only treat it as a project. They need to make sure every staff in this museum understand what's going on in this project. So they need to receive and respond to these new voices. I think it's a really good example, and I'd like to share the link just in the chat box, so you could see their current achievement. And I think they haven't made the most of the communication technology, because it's a project mainly happened in the museum, so less limited group of people could really participate in. But I think if they start to use communication technology, and so many people have passion about Van Gogh's artwork, so more and more people would like to join this kind of event. I could call it like a repatriate the right of speech to people.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And okay, I see Athena and Ariel, your hand's still raised. Do you have anything to add or any other thoughts? Okay, guess not. Is there any other comments or things you would like to share?
It's Anna here. Hi.
Please. Hi, Anna.
Hi. Yes. I attended a presentation yesterday. The University of Exeter are doing a whole festival of decolonisation.
Okay.
And I attended a really good presentation by Amy Shakespeare, who's a museum professional. And she was looking at the idea of absence. So, for example, one of the fears, I think, of British Museum and Western museums is that if they repatriate their archive, there'll be nothing left in the archive. but she said that a number of museums are addressing that by for example, the Pitt Rivers Museum are no longer displaying human remains, and some of them are being repatriated. So the case displays where those human remains have been have a whole kind of panels, a kind of educational work, like posters saying why they've been removed. So it's about discussing the reasons for repatriation and the reasons for not showing human remains. Another project was, I don't know if you remember the statue in Bristol, the Colston statue was toppled and put into the thrown into the water. And there's a project now where they're encouraging artists to do virtual designs of what the, it's just a pedestal now. So they're asking artists to create anti-colonial artworks as a way as forming a discussion. So it was a really interesting idea that the absence of artifacts can also lead to a discussion with the public about decolonization. So yeah, that was just a really interesting idea that I came across yesterday. So
yeah, definitely. So the idea of absence, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and I think the topic today, Hope brought us decolonization. I think it's very, very interesting, and we can discuss a lot. I think in further discussions. Okay, I see Louis raised her hand, please.
Hi guys, sorry, this is so interesting. So just some feedback for Anna. And since you mentioned the Pittsburgh Museum in Oxford, I just went there once, and it's really impressive. They got a lot of amazing collections in the museum, and just try to demonstrate the idea of like human society, human culture in different area. And since it's a very interesting case, and I believe I've mentioned this to Hope earlier, and they got a very interesting collection from Taiwan. It's from Yilan, it's kind of like countryside Taiwan, and they collect that item just because this belongs to the colonial period. Before the colonial period, it's a period that there's many immigration arrived Taiwan, and kind of like cheated to gain the island from Aboriginal culture. So there's a contract and a paper displayed in the museum, and there's a palm print on that. But basically is in Chinese, but Aboriginal people could read that. So it's quite easy to get that like a land from Aboriginal culture because they just slide some of the content of the contract, and it is displayed in the Pitt River Museum. I think it's very important to raise the history because I found this as a cultural object is displayed in a very general narratives in the museum. Most of experience very related to local history basically is absent. I think this is a thing that we need to consider more about what's the museum's responsibility, because it's also about how we consider or even problematize how these collections were collected. And also, then I want to mention another cases of Duchamp because it is basically as like body remains. It's actually I hope might know this case is a basically it's a mummy, and the mummy's name is Hsiao-Chiang, and it actually belongs to the local community, and people in the past they worshipped that that body because they believe these people done something very important to local society. And museum acquired that and displayed the body, but they realized maybe it's time to return that cultural item to the original cultural context, the cultural environment. So the museum, to cooperate the local society and just return that back to the original place. So as another audience mentioned, this is like cases in case it's very difficult for a museum to deal with every cultural object just case by case, but at least it's very important to start thinking about the maybe start from problematizing that the way we acquire this and what's the responsibility to responding to our contemporary issue about decolonization. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your...
Yeah, I totally agree. Many things need to do case by case. I mean, even this kind of human body in some museum layout, they have more open attitude to discuss it. But some museum might think, oh, it's too controversial. They tend to not show this kind of information online or in their physical museums. I think, yeah, just to respond to Louis' sharing, I just want to say, in the UK, people have different attitude throughout human body. I remember last time I visited UCL, they show pensions body just in the learning center. It's really special case because it's not even in the museums. And about the absence information, I just want to add one more point of view is many museums would tend to keep colonial history absent on their website. But as I also noticed, some museums use technology to make people easy to find their collection, like they use a map on their collection section. So people could just click on the map to see, oh, so like they have so many collection from my home country, so they could easily to pay attention to it. And it's a way to make people aware about where do this collection come from, like the Egypt's collections. Why this Egypt collection show in the British Museum? I mean, in the beginning, many people would take it for granted, think, yeah, this collection belong to museum because museum collect these old things. But nowadays, people could consider this issue critically and keep the information transparent and accessible, also easy to find. It's the best way to make people consider about it and discuss it case by case.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's some very interesting ideas, Hope. And I think it's a great way to, I think, okay, I was just going to say, okay, so Gabby was asking, hi, Hope, what are the websites who have the maps you mentioned?
Oh, yes, it's Creme Brownlee in France. I could share the link.
Oh, yeah, maybe you could type it in the chat.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so are there any other anyone wants to speak? If not, I will just go to the final stage of summing up and closing the event. Yeah, and I think our time is coming to an end. if there's anything else, we can always discuss after we have our emails and everything. So thank you all for so many wonderful discussions and ideas, and thank you, Hope, again for bringing many topics to the group. And I want to thank everyone for coming to this third event. And just for your information, our next event will be on the 17th of August, so again 6 weeks from now. And we have invited Francesca Curtis, who works with curatorial projects for The Line. It's an organization that develops public art projects in East London. You may find the information on ICOM UK's social media soon, or just subscribe to us on Eventbrite. Hope to see many of you guys then. And finally, I just want to take the time again to introduce this ICOM UK Student and Emerging Professional event again. I know that probably some of you have heard last time, but I just want to introduce this again. This is ICOM UK's new project to bring people together, and we would really like to engage more with the younger generations from the museum and culture sector. We hope to build a stronger community where we can also interdisciplinary professions and exploring innovative possibilities of the museum industry. So your voice is very important for us to move it further. If you would like to work with us, no matter it's sharing your experience as a speaker like Hope today, or join our regular team to organize events with us, please respond with your interest by filling up a Google form. Well, you can find, I think it's in the chat now. We really looking forward to welcoming any new members working with us. So before we close the meeting, may I ask if anyone has any questions or feedbacks for us if you're considering joining the project, or just any questions about this project or about how you would join.
So hi Robert.
Hi.
So can you just briefly explain how many people are now in this project, and what's their I mean, they are all students, or they are like some are young professionals?
Yeah, so we're trying to engage with both student and young professionals. And as for this group, so this student and emerging professional working group, right now is only me and Luis. But we've already got many applications to join. We're just trying to get more people involved, and then we can just start this like a recruitment process, or on short term or long term. Both are okay. And basically, well, I'm a PhD student at the moment, and Louise also is finishing her PhD. But we would welcome anyone, whether you're a student or young profession. And so for example, next time the speaker for next time, Francesca, she is a young profession in this organization in London. And basically what we do is that if you would like to join our working group, our work is basically just to contact speakers and organize the events, the contents, and manage the advertisement materials and sharing on social medias. So every time after the event, we would document it, and then the video and the text, and send it back to ICOM UK. So that's basically our work. And if you're interested, just please fill the Google form, and we'll
just
contact
add
you.
some details in the organization. So the communities, everybody will come, and so if you just click the link, you can recognize that there's multiple way you can cooperate with us. Like today's Hope just present the topic as a speaker, and if you want to cooperate as a speaker, it's also possible. We also need people to join as a regular team member working with us. Our current plan is a site with 5 people working together and share responsibility, also credits with ICOM UK. But also we also open for like projects that we can work for many more people as a special project, maybe a conference in the future. So there's many ways that you can cooperate with us, or you just write email and tell us that what you thought about this community, because this is for everybody, and ICOM UK is very keen to create a community among students, also early emerging professionals. So just welcome to respond and give your idea by click the link and to give us some feedbacks.
Yeah, Athena, did you have any questions, or? I saw you raise your hand before.
Yes, but it was covered, so it's all right. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so if there's no further questions. Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah, if there's no further questions and our time is just right, it's 3:30. Good job, everyone. Yeah, okay, so yeah, and again, you know, ICOM UK is very keen to hear student voices and also from young professions. So that's the reason we formed this working group. And just thank you everyone for coming today, and hope to see you next time, and you know, hope to have more further collaboration with many of you guys in the future. And thanks again, Hope. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so this is the end of our event. Thank you everyone for coming. Bye.
Bye.